Okay, here we are. What is your view on Israel's recent attack on Lebanon via pagers and phones, and where will this lead to? I am not the specialist on electronics, but anybody has a smartphone? Smartphone, yeah, come in. This is a very smart phone. Very smart phone. Because the same thing that happened with these pages, the same thing could happen with this. And they could cause you to be damaged, even lose your life. If they get to know your number, your telephone number, okay, and they're able from remotely to be able to program it in such a way that they're able to cause it to explode. This does not have to be Israel itself. Israel has many friends in the world. Israel has many friends in the world who can do that work for them. Israel can pay a company to do the work for them, yes. Can Modi's India be trusted, and will they fight with Israel in the Malhama? I like the question. I ended my lecture with a statement which I hope will provoke other scholars to continue where I left off. I said the fate which awaits Muslims in Hindu India appears to be the same fate which has befallen the Palestinian people, Muslims as well as Christians. This statement of mine should now be examined by other scholars and do the research to proceed further with the subject from where I have ended. Can you trust Israel's government when Israel is an oppressor? The answer is no. And you can see that Russia is now moving away from Israel. Russia is now distancing herself from Israel. What did Modi do when Hamas was led by the nose? A trap was set for Hamas. I don't like to use the term Hamas. I don't like to use the term Hamas. I prefer to use the term the Islamic resistance. And they attacked Israel on October the 7th of last year. At that time, I said that the Israeli Mossad and the CIA were most certainly involved in getting the state-of-the-art weapons and all the drones to get into Gaza. And so a trap was set for Hamas. But that's a different subject. When Israel was attacked on October the 7th last year, Narendra Modi then made a declaration publicly that we stand firmly in support of Israel. But when Israel then began the response, which was already pre-planned, and the world was seeing Israel as an oppressor, the Indian government then forced Narendra Modi to keep quiet. And India then began a balancing act. So yes, there is Narendra Modi who is vehemently pro-Israel, but he cannot say it publicly now. And so you can't trust him. What is likely to happen when the Malhama takes place? I'm happy I didn't have to deal with this subject in the lecture. I can deal with it now in the question and answer session. The lecture has built a foundation of a parallel that exists between Hinduism and Judaism, and a parallel, therefore, between India and Israel. This is the foundation of the lecture. But not all Jews are people who are oppressors, and not all Hindus. So this is not a lecture of bashing Hinduism, no. If Israel and India remain strategic allies of each other, and India has been pursuing the politics of expediency rather than integrity in its relations with Russia and with the West, then what is likely to happen at the time of the Great War? That is the question. And I believe that my answer is important for both Russia and China. My view is that the Great War cannot take place and will not take place until Israel chooses the time. The Mossad will know when the Great War is going to take place, because the Mossad is probably going to trigger off the Great War with a false flag act of terrorism, perhaps. Since Israel will have advanced knowledge of when the Great War will take place, Israel will therefore be able to plan to exploit the opportunity for their advantage. And I have long ago came to the conclusion that Pax Judaica cannot succeed Pax Americana. I hope you've read Jerusalem in the Quran. Put up your hands, let me see those who have read Jerusalem in the Quran. Oh, I'm disappointed. That is the most important book of all. Jerusalem in the Quran. It's at the back there. And you've not read it as yet. It was published 20-something years ago. That is the book which says that in Surah Al-Mursalat, when Allah spoke and He says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم انطلقوا إلى ظل ذي ثلاث شعب, proceed to a shadow comprised of three parts. And I said this is ayah mutashabiha. You know what is ayah mutashabiha. And therefore it has to be interpreted. But when we interpret the Quran, only Allah can confirm it's correct. But we say Allah knows best. And I have said the shadow is Al-Masih al-Dajjal. And his trademark is three parts. And my first application of the three parts was Pax Britannica, Pax Americana, and Pax Judaica. I was the first scholar to do that, and I still remain the only scholar. Nobody is prepared. No scholar is prepared to come and stand with me on that subject. I'm all alone. Never mind. Now I say, as I've said before, Pax Judaica is not possible so long as anyone in the world of Islam has nuclear weapons. So Israel has to ensure that both Pakistan and Iran are not nuclear powers. How will Pakistan be denuclearized? It cannot be done without Modi. It cannot be done without Modi. So the horrendous news I have to convey to Hindu India is that your Prime Minister and your government are likely to act in collusion with Israel to attempt to denuclearize Pakistan. And any attempt to denuclearize Pakistan is going to result in nuclear war in the subcontinent, with millions and millions dying. But Israel doesn't mind. If millions and millions have to die, Israel doesn't mind, and Modi doesn't mind. What about Imran Khan's position relationship to India? I spent 5 months in Pakistan 3 years ago. My teacher taught us, you don't go knocking on the door of a prime minister, a president, not a scholar of Islam. Respect, knowledge, and don't go knocking on the door. But if the prime minister or the king calls on you, then you respond. And Imran Khan and his government chose never to make any contact with me during the 5 months. If I had a chance to meet with him, I would have taught him something that Oxford could not teach him, and that is the Quran. I would have taught Imran Khan something that Oxford could not teach him, and that is the Quran. I have spent my entire life with the Quran. And I would have got him to understand who is the enemy he's facing. And if he had followed my advice, he wouldn't be in jail today. He'd be in Afghanistan and be leading the struggle for liberation of Pakistan from Afghanistan. And Afghanistan would have supported him. But Imran Khan has his own agenda, and he has his own Oxford education, and that's all I could do for him. That's all I have to say about Imran Khan. I think it's the same similar fate with my grandfather's country, Guyana, and across the whole Caribbean. So somebody here is Guyanese. Guyana is our next door neighbor from Trinidad. I visited Guyana a few times, and I've always felt the Guyanese are better people than the Trinidadians. Guyanese are very hospitable people, and they have more love for the religion than Trinidad. But the whole Caribbean appears to be collapsing. The whole Caribbean appears to be collapsing, and not just the Caribbean. The secular model of a society and the secular state around the world, which denies religion a significant role to play in the establishment and preservation of a sound and healthy and a stable society. That secular model is collapsing. In some parts of the world, it's collapsing faster. In other parts of the world, it's collapsing more slowly. All right. How will India affect its membership of BRICS if it oppresses Muslims, especially if Russia has good relations with Muslims? When Nabi Muhammad والسلام, made hijrah to the northern city of Yathrib, which eventually was renamed as Medina, and the Quraysh waged war against him in the Battle of Badr, and we won. And then in the Battle of Uhud, which they won. And in the Battle of Khandaq, where we survived. It was then a military stalemate. And then our Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, was guided to launch a peace offensive. That he's at war with Mecca. And yet he decided we're going to perform the pilgrimage to the house of Allah. It was a magnificent peace offensive. And it put Mecca on the horns of a dilemma, but this is not the time for me to teach this subject. When they reached Hudaybiyah, then they stopped. And Mecca was now forced to send someone to negotiate. That's what they wanted. They wanted Mecca to negotiate. That's what Putin wants. He wants you to negotiate with us. And when the negotiations took place, an agreement was reached called the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, that any person from Medina the Treaty of Hudaybiyah said that what is it now? That if our people come to you, you will send them back. I'm forgetting now the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Anyhow, the treaty was not popular with the Muslims. When the Prophet said, let us sacrifice the animals of Qurban here, no Muslim was prepared to do that, because the place for sacrificing the animals is there by the Kaaba. So no Muslim was prepared to agree to support the Prophet, none. He was all alone. Then his wife, I don't know which wife it was, said to him, why don't you sacrifice your animal? And when he did that, then everybody else sacrificed the animals. One Muslim escaped from his master, I think Suhail's son, is Abu Jandal, and he came to the Prophet, please protect me. He's Muslim, but the treaty said no, he had to be returned. And the Prophet ﷺ honored the treaty and sent him back. So sometimes in politics, in order to achieve a greater good, you have to make a sacrifice. And that sacrifice was manifest in Russia's relationship with Azerbaijan.